All right, so the goal of this video is to find annihilators for a different collection of functions. And when you think annihilators, you really want to just think derivatives from Calculus 1. So the idea is you ask yourself, how do I take the derivative of this to get 0? And for a linear function, we know that the first derivative is going to just be 3. And then the second derivative of this would be equal to 0. So it's that second derivative that identifies our annihilator. So we say that this is d to the second power. It's really a superscript of 2, but denoting second derivative of the function f of x is equal to 0. So d2, or d squared, is our annihilator for that function. Now let's move on to the next function, which is f of x is equal to 5x squared. Once again, we can take derivatives to kind of figure this out. The first derivative would be 10x. The second derivative would be 10. And then the third derivative would be equal to 0. So it's the third derivative of the function f of x that gives us 0. So that makes d to the third power our annihilator here. Now, exponential functions work very differently. So let's take a look at f of x is equal to e to the 3x power. When you look at these kinds of annihilators, you want to think about differential equations backwards. And that is if your y is equal to 3x, e to the 3x, then the derivative y prime is equal to 3 times e to the x, 3x. So that's really 3 times y. So y prime equals 3y would be that differential equation. So now, if you subtract the 3y from both sides, that's y prime minus 3y is equal to 0. And that gives you your annihilator, because the y prime is just the first derivative, which we'll call d, and then the minus 3 times the original function would just be a 1, because you just have one y there. So this is really d minus 3 applied to y. That gives you 0, because the derivative minus 3 times the function gives you 0. So your annihilator is d minus 3 for that function right there.